Okay, I'm going to introduce you here now. Good afternoon. Oh, good afternoon. Today is 2 March, the year 2010. I'm Dr. Dave Thompson, a volunteer at the Palm Springs Air Museum here in Palm Springs, California. As part of the Veterans History Project of the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., we conduct interviews of veterans and civilians who participated in our country's military conflicts. I'm here at the museum along with fellow volunteer Don Melvin and special guest Dr. Arlette Poland. And today we have the honor and the privilege of interviewing Mrs. Georgette DAVE Poland. Mrs. Poland was a little girl in Belgium in World War I and a 29-year-old when the Germans invaded Belgium in World War II. And subsequently, I believe, was married to an American Army officer. So we're going to talk to her about that and a lot of other things. Georgette, so good to have you here.
Glad to meet you.
Okay. Now, first of all, I need to get you lined up. You're on our camera. Okay. Okay, Georgette. First of all, can you, tell me your full name?
Oh, my name is Georgette Alice Elizabeth DAVE. Poland is my married name. I was born in Belgium in November 24, 1910. In Belgium, in a small town called Aalst, A-A-L-S-T, in the Flanders of Belgium. I was speaking Flemish until I was 9 years old. My parents spoke Flemish to me, but if they didn't want us to understand, they were speaking French between themselves. So,
And spell your maiden name for me, please. Your maiden name, how did you spell that? DAVE?
my maiden name,
How you spell it?
D-E-R-E-U.
Okay. With
DAVE.
a hyphen between the E and the...
DAVE,
No,
yes,
no
DAVE.
hyphen.
No hyphen? Oh, it's all one?
Two separate words.
No, well, I meant two separate words, right?
Yeah.
Are we still on?
Yes. Oh, you're fine. Yeah. Now, so where that little town? It's in Flanders, but how far from Brussels, for instance, would that be?
It's in Flanders, it's not far from Brussels. Oh, I would say maybe, I have no idea. I would say 40 miles probably, maximum.
Yeah.
And
your father, what was his name?
my father was named Charles. He was a teacher in middle school in Aalst, and he only taught in Flemish. Flemish is like a Dutch. It's pronounced differently, but it's written the same. It's very difficult to explain. Now, would you like to know what I remember of World War I?
Well, in all in good time. Yes, I will, but not quite yet. I want to know a little bit more about your mother. What was her name, and your mother and her maiden name? What was her name?
My mother was named Clotilde Arke, A-E-R-C-K-E, and she was also. Both my parents were born and raised in the same little town. My whole family was raised and born in this little town.
And how when we talk about little town, about how many people? What was the population of that little town?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no. It was small, but I went back later and I was very surprised how how much it has developed. I couldn't tell you.
Okay. Now, your ancestors, like your mother's parents, did they all live in Belgium as far back as you can remember?
All
that
my
they can remember?
family was born and raised in Flanders, and I have no ancestors I could think about, except my mother's name, Arke, is supposed to be Scandinavian. So I have no idea about it.
Okay,
That's all I know about my family background.
the Vikings might have got in there some.
Yeah.
some-
Ask
some-
about her grandmother.
on which side?
I think it's her father's side.
Your grandmother and your grandfather. What
On
did
your
they?
father's side.
What did your grandparents? What did they do?
What they did? Oh, my paternal grandparents were my grandfather, George. I was named Georgette after him. He was a shoemaker. And my grandmother, Teresa, she was a housevrouw. All right,
Yeah,
we start.
yeah. Just go ahead and start.
Okay.
Yeah. I just want you to kind of tell me in
When
your
the
own
war
words.
started, I was born in end of 1910. The war started in 14, so I must be 3 years old. I remember very little. The only thing I remember that I could remember the clap of the horses on the way, and everybody went inside. They were afraid. And I remember one time coming back from school and I heard the horses and I started to scream, "De Houlanen, de Houlanen." And I knocked on the door and they let me in and I was shaking with fright. And that's all I remember. And I remember after when the war was over, that the American sent food and I drank chocolate milk. I remember that.
Yes.
That was not the Plan Marshall, that was... But you have to remember that Belgium in World War I was the only country that was invaded. Holland was free. As a matter of fact, the Kaiser took refuge in Holland after the war. So we always had everything when welcome. The Belgians got it.
Yeah.
The battlefield of Europe.
Yes.
You remember Waterloo,
Yes.
Napoleon?
Yes.
That's 30 miles from Brussels. So, I don't remember being hungry like I was in World War II because I was too small. I don't know. My father was discharged because he had contracted, they were in the fields, in the open field with all the rain. He contracted pneumonia and it turned into TB.
And he was in the Belgian army?
Yeah. And he was discharged, but all the Belgians were discharged. And, he was a veteran.
Yes.
But, also in World War I, it's in Belgium on the River Isère, 1 SER, in northern France and Belgium, that the German army were stopped. And you remember the poppy fields? That's where it was.
Flanders Fields.
Yeah, that's the poppy fields were there. And they never managed to, but that's when they come with the gas. but they never managed to go through France, a little bit northern part. So that's, yeah, that's how I remember.
That's how, well, thank you.
Very little.
Thank you very much. I take these interviews, some of them, and edit them down to about 6 or 8 minutes, and I add titles and music and things like that. And I put them on YouTube, and for people to look at, and it's on our website too at the Air Museum. And so I've got World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and I also got one for World War I. So I wanted to put hers on there, and there's another lady that. So
Yeah.
that's why I kind of wanted to. She talked about it before. I just wanted to make sure we didn't
This is
miss
more
anything,
detail.
so I could get into it.
Yeah, good job.
I
Yeah.
remember where we stopped last time.
Yeah, the train.
When we came back from France.
That's right.
And you were
yes.
on the train. You
And
didn't get
every-
off yet.
And we arrived at the station, and it was curfew. And we had to wait until when the curfew was lifted to go home. So life began again, but it was completely different
Ask her how long the curfew
from
was.
when we left, because everything was rationed. There was curfew, blackout, all the windows had to be blacked out. We still get some food at that time, because then must have been left over. However, due to the fact that they had World War I, the Belgians, they knew what's going to happen. So everybody was stocking whatever they could. The farmers didn't deliver anymore. So that was the change that happened. But then it got worse and worse and worse.
Now you had you were working for a company in Brussels, and
Yeah.
and they they transferred you guys down to France, but then the Germans came there, and then
Come
you
back,
went back.
yeah.
Now, and so how long were you away before you actually went back?
It must have been about 3 to 4 months. Yeah, I remember, because when we came back, we had to pay the rent.
So did you went back to the same house?
Oh, yeah.
And I can't remember. Were you living with your
Well,
family there?
My brother, he was taken prisoner, but he managed to escape, and he took care of the apartment. So we had
That's
a
great,
place
yeah.
to go back to,
Here.
and
Were you living there with your mom and your sister?
Who all was living in the apartment? Who else besides you lived in the
my
apartment?
mother, my brother, and my sister, the 3 of us.
Okay. And you had a job, and what was that
Well,
job?
I went back to my job wondering what's going to happen. Well, it was a very small company. But due to the fact that America was not at war, could still send chemicals. It was trichloroethylene that's used in dry cleaning. I remember that. I don't remember much. And then French, the turpentine, because in that part of France where I was, they have huge pine forest, and they attach little cups, and the turpentine comes down, and then they empty the cups, and we still had some. So the company was still going. So, we only 5 of us, but I don't know how they did. I know they sold everything on the black market, because they kept us all during the war. And I know that the two directors got very rich.
Oh.
It's like, even if it was small, you have no idea how suddenly everything was very expensive. Everything disappeared. Those who made fortunes, the farmers, of course there were requisitions and all that, but they managed to get, and then the people start to get rid of their belongings in able to eat. But all the food in the beginning was still like bread, was still bread.
Mom,
No, it's okay. No,
hands.
no, it's all right.
What?
Ow.
Okay.
I have to calm down.
No. Just,
no, she's fine. She
Okay.
needs, I want her to be expressive.
Well,
That's good.
Bread was still bread a couple of months, and then bread was made with everything. I don't know what. No coffee. They made coffee with beets, kind of a chicorée. Everything was called ersatz.
What's what?
Ersatz means
ERSATZ.
means
Ersatz.
Or sex,
make
yeah.
believe, you know.
I don't drink coffee, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
replacement of what exists. So the company I worked for, they did very little business because they made one big one, and then, so we went, once in a while I typed a letter, but not very involving. The letters never mention the sales. They wanted to hide everything. So we had 2 hours of gas and electricity. No, electricity, we couldn't go more than so much or they cut off your electricity. So we went to the office. We were all dressed to kill. We had a tiny little electric heater, and whatever business we did first, which was very. Then all we talked about was food. How are we going to get food? Do you know anybody had something for sale? If they have something for sale, we brought it in. Because that's all we talked about was survival. And then we played cards because there was nothing else to do. In the afternoon we went home because we were freezing to death. And Belgium has a very poor climate, similar, according to Patrick, to Oregon. Rain, rain, rain. Well, that's what we did. Bored to death. If you go to a store, everything you could buy was probably the same quality we have from the Chinese. Probably all. But, you know, if I had my clothes, the only thing that I needed was something warm because we were so cold. So I bought one item. Guess what it was? A little fur coat made with cat pelts. You couldn't find one single cat. Pigeons, no more pigeons. Everything that could be eaten is eaten. I told a story last Sunday about my mother. I arrived home, my mother said, "There's nothing to eat." I went to the store, there was a big line, and they ran out of, it's everywhere. The only people that could afford to eat were the rich, or people who knew farmers. So there was nothing to eat. Nothing. Just water. So I had a good friend of mine, and she lived in a small community with a farmer, and her husband was a taxman, taxed. So I figured they must have food. So I called her, and I said, could you help me? We have no. She said, yeah, come down, I can help you. I'm sure they were never hungry. And so I went, and probably she fed me. And so I had 10 kilos of potatoes, a tiny little piece of ham, and a bread in a suitcase. Mind you, at that time I weighed 100 pounds. So I go back on the train with my suitcase, arrive in Brussels, control the Germans. We stayed in line, and then we have to open the suitcase. They took away. But the line was big, and I was at the end. And the Germans came and cut the line in half and say, you can go. Then I had to go on a streetcar. Well, anyhow, that was one instant I remember very vivid. The other times I don't remember. Yeah, I remember one time we had at my office, I don't know if it was weird, tiny little pieces of rice that they give to the chicken. That was a big treat. When we had potatoes, we had 2 hours of gas, so we had to go fast. When we had potatoes, we peeled them, we boiled them in the water. The water we boiled them in was water for soup. The peelings were going in the soup. Whatever you could find. It was a struggle for 4 years. And all we did, we were talking, when the war is over, I'm going to eat a big fat steak. I want a big chocolate cake. So that was the war, during the war.
So the Germans were pretty much all over? I mean, did they
Well,
keep track of you pretty
oddly
much,
enough,
or what?
Not in Brussels, because can you imagine his army from Norway all the way down to France? He didn't have enough army. What he did, what we saw a lot of old civilian men who could be grandfathers, you know, but they were office workers, they were not soldiers. But most of it was in Antwerp, because they have a port, they had the diamond industry, and so everything was concentrated in Antwerp. Yeah, I would say, we saw Germans walking 2 by 2 and ask you for your ID, and you better have an ID that you have a job, because if you didn't have a job, they took you, sent you to Germany to work in their factories. Luckily, my brother had a job in a department store. My sister had a job, and I had mine, so we were safe.
Was there an active underground resistance movement in Belgium at all?
Oh yeah, there must have been, but I was not involved in it, nor I didn't know it. And maybe I didn't want to get involved, maybe I was scared.
Yeah, but you didn't hear much about
No.
what was going on, yeah.
I know it existed, but I don't know if it existed in Brussels. It must have.
Yeah.
But I understood it was more on the outskirts.
Did Brussels get bombed at all?
No, because the king surrendered. Now this huge army in that little Belgium, he surrendered, and he was a prisoner in his chateau. And we were highly criticized by the French for that. Oh, the French hated us, because look, well, okay, so they had their Maginot Line, and it crumbled in 2 months.
Yeah, they didn't do much better, so they don't have any reason to talk.
No, and the German went to France, and there was very little damage done. Only in northern part of France, but all of France was safe.
But the Allies did not bomb Brussels either?
No, not then. The bombing started much later. Most of the bombing started when the Americans went in the war. When they joined.
came in, yeah.
They say the Americans come over during the day and the British at night.
That's right. Yeah.
But it was, well, not immediate, maybe 2.5, 3 years later.
Right.
Huge amount. I mean, like thunder. I don't know how many airplanes. It looks to me like there were hundreds of airplanes, but they never bombed. If a bomb fell, yeah, but we were never damaged
Oh.
by the
So they
Allies.
didn't, Brussels was not a target of the
Yeah.
Allies?
Yeah.
You saw them going over to other places?
We heard them mostly because they were flying
No,
high
right, yes.
during the night and the day.
Right.
But what we were watching, and then the V1 and the V2 came. The V1 started, it was a terrible noise, huge. So we were all watching that thing flying over, and they said when it stopped, that's when it fell. But it fell, well, Antwerp and England, of
England,
course,
yes.
took a big, and then the V2, I don't know the difference between the two.
Yeah, I forget, but I'm not sure myself. No.
So we watched that. We watched it. And also, at the end, you know, there were so many airplanes that we were watching it.
They said they would sometimes put up 2,000 planes at a time.
How many?
2,000.
Can you imagine the noise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deafening.
Yeah.
It was
20 miles of planes just
Yeah.
end to end.
Stacked up.
it was amazing. I mean, so we knew that the end was coming. But then we had a big fright when the Battle of the Bulge, again Belgium, the Battle of the Bulge, then we thought, oh no, they're coming back. And you know, it was
Very close.
50-50. And the thing I've been told, I didn't read about, the thing about it, there was a woman, it was on the border of Luxembourg and they spoke German. And that woman was on a bike and she went somewhere and there was a German soldier. And he said, you better go back because there's going to be a big offensive. And I understand she went to the headquarters, the American headquarters.
Well, if she did, they probably didn't listen to her because they got overrun right away. So
No, they were not prepared.
no, not at all. Yeah.
And then there was the
Nope.
hardest winter in the history.
The weather
They had
was
snow that high.
Wow.
And then in the there was a forest. And the Belgians were giving their sheets to put to blanket, you know. But there were a huge loss of Americans.
it was in the
And
also
then the Nut City, you know, the one is
Bastogne.
Nut City is in Belgium.
I know, I was
and
there.
they have a statue. They have a statue of him.
Yes, McAuliffe.
What was his name?
McAuliffe,
Yeah.
General
He
McAuliffe.
said to the German asked to surrender. A German officer came with a white flag and spoke to them and said, will you surrender? And he said to him, nuts.
He did.
And that became the Nut City.
Right. Yeah,
And
I have been there.
You've been there?
I have been there, yes. I was there in 96, or 2006. It was the 40th anniversary of the, or, yeah,
That's amazing.
of
Yeah,
2004.
we were really wondering.
So when that happened, by that time had the Germans retreated out of Brussels with the Battle of the Bulge? You said you were afraid they were going to come back.
Oh, yeah.
So they were already out of the
Oh
city.
yeah, but how many Americans were killed in the thousands?
I know. But,
Ask the question again.
so were there Americans in Brussels at that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The first soldiers who arrived in Brussels were the British, then the Canadian, and then soldiers from other countries, Norway, Denmark, Poland. They had to think Poland, all the people that had fled to England and enlisted and were part of the invasion. So those were the first ones, and probably they went further. And then the Americans came, and right away we were just amazed when we saw them. Oh, their uniforms are beautiful. All good quality. The poor British were so miserable. Here come the American all dressed up. And that's the first time I saw women officers.
Wow.
And their pinks and all. Oh, we were amazed. Right away, the Americans arrived, what they did, they opened PXs.
Now, did you speak English at that time?
Well, I had 2 years in school. But you cannot say he spoke English. Well, I understood some. And that too were the first one, who were the British. But oddly enough, the British and the Canadian, they didn't get along at all. They didn't like each other.
And like those cowboys coming from the Canadian.
Yep.
camp.
Because I saw them fighting in the streets.
Oh, dear.
Well, anyhow, then it was full, of soldiers who arrived, and that's when they took Antwerp. The port hadn't been damaged yet. Well, a little, and that's where the whole thing came in. That they call it a dirt. That's where my husband landed in Antwerp. So they had a lot of damage with the V1, the V2s, and every day they bombed. There's paper there with all the bombing that happened in Antwerp.
And when did you first meet your husband?
After the
Not
war.
in Belgium.
No, not till after the war. Oh, okay.
That's, you remember, my girlfriend, one of my friends, was working in the American PX. Do you know what the currency was in Belgium? Carton of cigarettes. That's, I'm not kidding.
Lucky strikes.
So many
Yes,
cartons of
and-
cigarettes.
Lucky
Well,
strike means fine.
So
good.
my girlfriend, she was working in the PX, she was a cashier there. And she said to me, they are going to hire people, typists and all that stuff, who know some English, to go to Germany to the headquarters. And she said, I'm going to pass. She said, why don't you go? I just had lost my mother, I was alone. And I said, okay, I'll try. So we had to pass an exam, typing and a little speaking, fair
English.
So my girlfriend, she flunked. I passed. She said, that's all right, I'll try again. And there was another one, Colette, another friend, she passed too. So two. So we had to go health, investigation, your background, and then it took a while. And so I got my orders get to Germany. So I quit my job quite abruptly, and I don't think they'll be very happy with me. I thought, you know, but the deal was so good. You were given quarters. You were paid over there in Germany in dollars. Only part of your salary went to the Belgian government who put over. So it was kind of defined. And we had free meals.
I wanted to ask you though, how soon did getting food improve once the Americans and the Allies started coming into Brussels?
How long it took to go over there?
No. Okay, you didn't have much food. When the Germans were there, you didn't have much food at all.
No.
But when the Germans left and the Americans came in, were you
What
starting to
happened
get?
when-
Were you
it
starting
took
to get?
some time.
Took some time.
It was not instant, but it was got much better because the farmers couldn't black mark anymore. They had to deliver they had to sell it anyway. It was better, but not. It took maybe a year before normal life happened. Yeah, but then I was stationed in Frankfurt. Yeah, so my girlfriend.
Let's go back a second. When the war ended, where were you? What happened? When the war ended, when you heard about
when
it?
the war ended.
Let's just cover that for a minute.
Well, first of all, there was kind of a big silence. You know, the Germans were fleeing, and everybody stayed home. You know, afraid to be caught in the thing. And then suddenly, the mobs of people streamed in the warehouses from the German, all over, battling for possessions. I mean, it was terrible. I mean, you know, they would have killed each other too. Yeah, but then we know the war was over. I mean, you know, the Germans had gone. But it was very silent because we were afraid. And then, you know, our life started to be big, no more blackout, you know, we had electricity, gas, almost. But during the war, oddly enough, we had movies. Of course, German movies, all propaganda movies. Or movies to make you happy, all in German. And soon, maybe a couple of weeks later, here we have in the movies, American movies. Because the American movies were very popular in Europe. As a matter of fact, we all could sing you songs in English without understanding it. My brother could sing English songs like you wouldn't believe. He didn't speak one word. Yeah, that was, things became normal. But Americans were a lot, in Brussels, a lot of Americans. And of course the black market was very flourishing with the cigarettes. And see the GIs did too, their little thing.
So then
I know because my girlfriend told me.
Yeah. Now, when you when the war ended, now during the war, did you have a boyfriend or anybody special at all during that time?
No, because before the war, I had a relationship that just ended with the war. You didn't think about romance, believe me. All you wanted to do is eat.
Yeah.
It was a very dull life. I read a lot by flashlight, mostly. And I went to the movies. Then I learned German, of course. But I already knew German because before the war, nobody in the office knew German. And through my Flemish, I could learn German very easily. And I would have a race if I learned German and could
Translate.
Of course, I could not compose a letter, but I could tell what was on. Yeah, and that's how I learned some German. And
So, okay,
So-
now you've gone over to Frankfurt.
so we have a trainer where a lot of even men. And so I wonder, I was all alone because Colette got engaged, she didn't come. And I wonder how on earth I'm going to do all alone, I don't know. So, but we were quartered together, like in one apartment, there may be 5 or 6. And so we were together and we befriended each other. And then they assigned us a uniform with Belgium, France, England, all kind of nationalities. We always were kidding between us, and we say, yeah, they imported women for the soldiers.
Well, were you working for like the United Nations or for
The Americans.
the Belgians or the Americans? Who were you working for? Who were you working for?
Oh, G2,
The American Army?
Yeah.
yeah, G2.
That's the intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were reading, I was reading, well, we were reading letters, you know, German. But-
Translating German.
Yeah,
I see.
but there were so many of us there, and then I had to have a different filing system in the army. We go by A, B, C, D, no, and I don't remember, it was so hard to do. But anyhow, we had free logic. Some of them were very poor because we were in an apartment that the kitchen and the bathroom was completely black. The walls were black, they had been burned. And we were assigned a woman, a cleaning woman, to clean for them. It was very, and we could walk to our job. And what else? Oh, free meals. And then we could go to the PX. I even got a ration of tobacco. I didn't smoke, but I had a carton of cigarette because the carton of cigarette was worth in Germany. So we all became black marketers. All of us. Believe me, there was not one person who didn't do it. So, yeah. And we had the meals, you know, after starving for it, American food. First time I ate corn. I never eaten corn in my life. I didn't know how to eat it, actually. Yeah, I gained 20 pounds. I was very happy I had taken that decision because I left, my brother took care of my furniture and I left everything behind. No more wallets.
And when you were reading these German letters, were any of them interesting? You remember any of them that you read?
No, well, we had so many, but I was not good enough in the language. I did not know enough German. Of course, later on I was better, but no, I wasn't. I think they put me in the fighting because they were not very happy with me.
Now, is that where you met your husband in Frankfurt?
Yes.
Yeah, So we were living together, you know, the girls, and I was sharing the apartment with three others, yeah, 4. And Rosie was the pretty one. She was a little Jewish girl. She has lost her whole family, and the only way she was saved because she had married a Belgian who divorced her anyway. So Rosie, she had a date with an officer, and he said, could you ask 2 of your friends? Because I have 2 of my friends who would like to go out. But so ask another one of myself to go out at the officers' club dance every night. So they arrived in their jeep. There were only 2. So, but they say, oh, come on, you know. We all piled in the jeep. And I didn't pay any attention to my husband, the one who was supposed to become my husband, because he was very tall. I'm short. And the other girl was a tall girl. So I figured he's not going to look at me. He's going to look at the tall girl. And at the end of the evening, they drove us home, and he said, may I see you again? So that's how it started. And then
what was his name?
Arthur
Arthur what?
Poland.
Arthur Poland.
Okay. And where was he from?
Kentucky.
From Kentucky?
Pardon me?
What state was he from?
Covington, Kentucky.
Covington, yes.
Oh, horses, of course.
Yes.
He,
Did he have kind of a southern accent?
no,
No?
No
Not that
accent.
much, no.
no, because he was working in Cincinnati. It's right on the
Across
border.
the
Yes,
He
right.
was working there.
I have relatives in
As a
Cincinnati.
matter of fact, at the end of this album, there is a picture of that who went back to his company, because every year he thought they were going to keep him. And they changed their mind after he discharged, which was a good deal.
Yeah.
Thank God. So that's how I got
And so
married.
he was an officer. What was his rank when you met him?
First lieutenant.
Had he gone to college, or how did he?
No, he had very little background. He had a business background. He went through the ranks. He was a PFC at $21
And he got
a
a
month.
field commission.
Field
He
commissioner.
went through the ranks.
So was he in the infantry?
No, Transportation Corps.
Transportation. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was commissioned an officer in Antwerp.
In the field.
Was he
Yeah.
part of that Red Ball Express, and where they were transporting, like the Patton's Army, these guys that drove the trucks to delivering the gasoline
He
and
was,
stuff like that?
he was the commander of the train that was the first train that went through the Berlin blockade. And then when he did the Korean police action, he was also in Transportation Corps there.
Oh, okay.
And then most of the time, at that time, they were begging people to stay
To stay in the service.
because they needed the people to go. And he was transferred to the headquarters in Frankfurt at Transportation Corps. And that's where I met him. And then we stayed in Frankfurt for about a year and a half, and then we were transferred to Heidelberg. And then after,
Did Heidelberg take any damage during the war?
No.
I didn't think so. It's a beautiful old city, is it not?
yeah.
It's actually where I
Oh,
was
we
born.
went to the castle.
Were you? Oh.
Do you speak German?
No.
Oh, you don't.
Well, no, I don't.
There is a song. Ich
Ich hab mein Herz in Heidelberg verloren.
I've lost my heart in Heidelberg. That's the they had a lot of little student cabaret there.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's.
It's a pretty city. It's a
Yeah,
pretty
is there
little
a
city. So
opera or something about Thailand?
After that-
The student,
Oh, yeah, yeah. I
the
think
student
so.
prince, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, I think so,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and then, but then he stayed in the army, signed for, and then he got his order to go to the States, and I had to go to all kinds of paper because I wasn't a citizen yet. No. It's not automatic, and I didn't know how lucky I was at that time. We got transferred to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Right there, in Fort Mason,
We were up at Fort Mason
right
in
there on the
Officers
sea.
Country. View.
Oh, God. And you know, I went through, visit his family. We took a train all the way to California, beautiful. But I thought the cities were not cities like the way I knew them. I didn't think the cities were pretty. And I thought, this is not, of course, Europe, you know, I had his. I arrived in San Francisco. That was my city. Exactly like, you know. Oh, it. And then I was so lucky because I found a job with the Belgian consul.
In San Francisco?
I went to the consulate, you know, to introduce myself.
Where was
as a
it?
Belgian.
Where was it in San Francisco? Where was the?
On Market Street.
Market Street.
And, well, and they say, oh, we just opened an Belgian exhibition. And do you take shorthand?
Wait, Mom, pause.
Oh, that's
Wait,
no, you
Steve.
can continue. Continue. I want to.
Is it still running?
It is. That's fine. Because I want to talk a little bit. Now, you had a child in Heidelberg?
No,
Oh, you did not.
no, I was
In
not.
San Francisco,
San Francisco.
at the Belgian consulate.
Okay. Oh, but you were.
She's talking about job. I
And-
thought you said job.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
We were only 1 year and a half in San Francisco.
Okay.
When we got our orders again to go to Germany.
Oh, okay.
And I wasn't a citizen yet. So I had been studying very hard for my citizenship. But they rushed me through, they gave me exemption because we were transferred. And I could not go without my citizenship. So I got my citizenship in '51 in San Francisco. And then we were stationed in Frankfurt. Little did we know that we would have her.
Well, tell me about, or let her tell us about that.
Oh, no, that's,
Yes.
I have to fix my makeup.
No, you're fine. Let me get you right here. There we go. Okay. And you are Arlette, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
The one and only.
And so tell us
Careful, it's
about,
leaning there.
yeah, I'll just kind of hold it here for a little
Okay.
bit. So, how did,
I was born in '51, so now
Okay.
you know my age. And I was born in Heidelberg, which they had just left before. And when Mom and Dad were in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean sailing to go back to Europe after she had gotten her citizenship, is when I was born.
okay.
And then they got transferred to what city? When you went back to Germany, what city first? Bad Kreuznach, and
Mainz.
which is near Mainz.
Okay.
And I had been born, and I was in an orphanage right away from when I was 5 days old. And it was a very poor orphanage. It was in a little tiny city called Bingen, which is in the curve of the Rhine River up above the Rhine. And the orphanage was run by Catholic nuns, and they were very poor. It was not too long after the war, and it was very poor. And it was also the French sector. And the French aren't known for being really clean, so it was not the best of the sectors. And my mom, because of her being able to speak German, she had had a couple of miscarriages, and they talked about, we'll adopt. And my dad always said, well, when we get around to that, we're going to have a boy because I want a football player. That's the end of that. But I think in the back of his mind, he would have been happy with a jockey too. Anyway, so Mom went out with this couple who were looking to adopt an older German boy, 2 years old, maybe 3 years old.
They had the addresses.
And they knew the addresses of some orphanages. So they'd been to several orphanages during the course of their day and other times. And Mom would always go with them to translate because these were German orphanages. And, Mom would see all these babies and stuff, and nothing affected her particularly, apparently. And then she went to the orphanage where I was, and she was helping them to translate. And then she saw me. And I should let her tell the rest.
Okay.
Tell from when you saw me, Mom.
Huh?
Tell from when you saw me. I used to get this story every night when I was little.
Okay.
Mommy and Daddy went to this big house, found their little baby.
Well, anyhow, I didn't go there too. And I was on my way out. I was on my way out.
Ah.
And then I came back.
And what was it about her that
I don't know. She looked very bored. She was staying there. I think her eyes. I think it was your eyes. I don't know. I cannot explain it. I cannot say eyes. It was you. That's it.
I was waiting for her.
Destiny.
She thinks she
Destiny.
picked me, I picked
Yes,
her.
I'm sure.
Destiny. And that's why I'm here talking to you.
It's all my fault.
Well, I'm glad you picked her out.
Have you
because
any other questions?
Well, of course.
Yes.
So you were, and that was, what year did you?
That was at the end of 51. I was
At-
about 10 months old by the time they brought me
Okay,
home.
when they brought you home, okay. And so then what did you do after that?
Well, we discovered that she became like a blossom. She became a beautiful baby. Little girl, always smiling. She was talking to everybody like she does. She did. She did. She was very friendly. A friendly little girl. And easy. The only trouble started when she met the boys.
I wonder why.
Yeah. So then we started with her citizenship.
Yeah.
We had to go to Frankfurt and pass examination, and we were in the French zone. Mainz was in the French zone. The French had asked America to take over, but we still were in the French zone. We had to go through the French and the Germans.
And the American military, for the 3 different levels of paperwork in order to make the adoption final. And
Yeah.
then I had to pass a physical. I was extremely ill. Probably 2 or 3 more weeks in the orphanage, I would have died. So it was just in time.
Well, anyhow, there was question. They made an exception, I understand, for the Americans to adopt the child. There were so many, especially mixed race. And we were wondering if we would be able to take her to the States, because we didn't got the visa. right away we had, well, finally we got the visa to go. And then we were stationed in another Bay Area, Alameda, right on. We were so lucky. Well,
I got my citizenship in San Francisco also.
Oh,
So we're both natives of San Francisco, so to speak.
yeah.
yeah.
I was 5 years old. I said the Pledge of Allegiance in court.
And it was so nice there that when the time came to retire, we chose Alameda.
Did your husband make the service a career?
Yes.
It was career military.
Yeah. was a career
and
army
then,
officer.
and then he had to leave. He was obligated to leave after 20 years. He could not stay because they were cutting the army. You know, they had too many, and they were keeping those officers who went through West Point, you know. And they had to leave, actually. But he found
Broke his heart.
he found a good job at the Oakland Army Base.
Civil service.
Oh. Now, how old were you when he retired?
I was about 12, almost 12, 11, 12.
So had you lived anywhere besides San Francisco?
Oh, yeah. We lived in Europe, and then when we were in Europe, we traveled around into even North Africa and around Europe to visit family in Spain. And we lived in Japan for quite a while when my dad was in Korea. And actually, from the time they got me until I was about 11, almost 12, when we actually lived in this country, I was only in the U.S. really for about a year and a half when we lived in Denver, when my dad was recuperating from TB, which he had contracted in Korea.
Yeah, but we got our citizenship.
Yeah, but that was
Also on
yeah.
another
But
day.
we were here for a year and a half or something at the most. I mean,
Did
it was
you
in
say-
and out real fast, and then we went over to Europe when Dad was in Korea, and then came back. So we weren't settled ever here.
Was he in Korea during the Korean War?
Yeah,
Oh, he was. What
but the
was he
thing is
doing?
that,
Transportation Corps.
so we were going to Japan, but she was not a citizen.
Yeah. So in
But
order for me to
he
go
got-
or come back, I had to get my
But
citizenship.
he got the citizenship before,
Right
he
before.
left.
Right before.
Guess where she got the citizenship? San Francisco.
Yeah.
So he's retired and he's working in for the Army base in, was it Alameda?
Oakland Army Base.
Oakland Army Base.
OAB,
Oh,
Oakland Army
okay.
Base.
Okay.
Civil service.
And then in Japan, my husband had contracted pneumonia in Korea, who turned, just like my father, turning TB.
I told him that already.
Oh,
Yeah. We're now in Oakland after
Oh,
he
yeah.
retired.
where are we?
Oakland after and Alameda. We're in Alameda now.
Well, my husband passed away in 72.
72.
Yeah. And this one pushed me to go back to college.
Back to, she'd never been to an American school ever,
Oh.
ever. She had her convent school that she went to, convent-like school in Belgium, but
So where did you go to college?
In
It was-
Chabot College first, and
Community
then the Hayward Cal State. I was 70 years old when I
she got her
graduated.
bachelor's.
Great.
She was the oldest one and she was on the dean's list every semester.
And every evening we were fighting because she wanted to read my papers. She wanted.
And I was making correction. Meanwhile, I'm in law school.
Oh, right.
So we're both in school. We're both on the GI Bill.
And I liked history. She liked philosophy.
Yeah.
And I don't. I don't like. So
She liked art history. Oh my gosh, such a memory for art history. Oh, still remembers things. I mean, you could show her a painting and she'd start talking about, the time period and the artists. And for me, it's like, I know from nothing about that. Give me philosophy.
She was good in algebra, geometry, and all,
math.
but she could not multiply.
Yeah. Regular math,
My husband used to say 3 by 8 every time he was, and I don't think can you still?
Well, I'm slower at that than algebra for sure.
But you have the machines now.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
have
you got
machines.
the machine. Okay, let's take time out. I got to change. And who is this again? Who's this newcomer?
This is Vashti.
Vashti. And what does
Yeah.
that mean?
Vashti is a Persian name. She is, if you know the story from the Hebrew Bible of Purim.
Of who?
She's of Purim, the story of Purim, the story of Esther.
I can't remember. Oh, Esther. Yeah.
Esther's story, well, before she became queen,
Yeah.
there was a queen before her
Yeah.
named, and this queen was very, very beautiful, and the king, Ahasuerus, was one of those drunken, orgiest type idiot guys, cartoon character. And Ahasuerus was having one of his, the story opens, usual kind of orgies for 3 days, and he calls for his queen to come and present herself because she's so beautiful. And she says no. And, well, then, if you're going to do that, I'm going to have myself another queen. And I'll hold a beauty contest, and the new one will be the queen. And she says, okay, like that's a problem. And then he says, and as your punishment, you can never come before me again. She's like, okay, that's a problem. And that's Queen Vashti. And if she hadn't said no to him in the first place, there'd be no Esther.
My goodness. No.
This is Vashti.
Well, thank you, Vashti. Thank you. Thank you for giving that.
I consider her the first feminist in the Hebrew Bible.
So, let's back up just a little bit. Now, where did you go to high school and stuff?
Alameda High.
Okay.
And I did it in 3 years because I hated it so much.
Why? Why didn't you like it?
Because I was a reject of the reject group. Pretty much didn't have any friends and didn't really. So I skipped 11th grade, went from 10 to 12.
Was
and got
that
out.
mainly because you didn't come up through grade school with all these other kids? And
I
you were
think
kinda
that might have
around
been
and
some
stuff,
of
didn't
it.
really have fun?
I think that might have been some of it. Although in the military, you're moving around so much, you make friends really
Oh,
fast.
I know. Yeah.
So I mean, I didn't. It's not probably that I didn't have the skill. It's just it just didn't happen.
Okay. And so then you went to, where did you go to college right away then?
Well, I went for 2 years right out of high school to UC Santa Barbara, where we burned down the bank. If you remember that,
No,
at
I
Santa
don't
Barbara.
remember- I don't remember that, but-
Burned down the bank after, Bank of America, boom, burned down. And we were under martial law, thank you Reagan, all that stuff. It was quite interesting. And then I dropped out for 3 years. And one of the wonderful things about my parents was they never panicked that I dropped out. Some parents would say, oh no, don't drop out, and they'd be all pushing you, and I don't remember ever having that. It was my decision, and I think they never doubted that I would go back, and I never did. So really what I wanted to do was travel, and since we didn't have the money for me to travel on our dime, I went on somebody else's and became a flight attendant.
Oh, did you really? Yeah.
And I flew with a couple different lines for total of about 3 years.
Which ones?
Well, first I was with a helicopter line in the Bay Area, and then when I finished up with them, finally I was old enough to go with United. So I went with United, and then my dad got sick, and the VA, they did this big operation on his lungs, and then he had a major setback, and he ended up in ICU for a really long, long time. Eventually he came out of that, but then he died about 3 months later when he got out of the hospital. But in the meantime, I asked United for an emergency transfer back to San Francisco, because I was out in Washington, D.C. And they said no, and I said, okay, bye. I can always find another job, so I can't find another mom and dad. And on the way back, flying back, one of the times, because you get to deadhead back, and you get to be in first class, so you get to meet all the first class people. So I met this guy who owned a bank, and his family was bankers, and they were very wealthy and stuff, Andy, and he became a good friend, but he also was good friends with a guy named Ed Daly, who was the owner of the charter carrier, was it World Airways? Remember during the Vietnam War, they lifted some people out? That's Ed. He was very crazy. Anyway, so Andy put a word in for Ed, and so I started working in the offices at World Airways until finally they opened up the line, the training for going out online, and I went through the first class that trained, and then I was flying to Europe all the time because I had the language, French, and a little tiny bit of German. So I was going to Europe all the time, and then my brain said, help, I'm dying. So I said, okay, time to go back to school. So then I finished up my last 2 years at Berkeley, and then from there right into law school.
And where'd you go to law school?
San Francisco Law School, 4 years, 4 nights a week, 2 jobs in the day.
And then did you use your legal?
Yeah, I practiced law in a very unusual way for about 30 years almost.
Oh.
25, almost 30 years.
Yeah. But you're not doing that now. You're,
No, not at all. No,
So-
nothing to do with it.
Okay.
No.
So how did you get into what you're doing now?
Oh, well, my roommate from college, from when I was 17, and we were roommates and stuff, she said I was always like this, but I was always philosophical, as Mom commented. And, you know, big, heavy questions and big, heavy answers that either I read somewhere or made up myself or something. And I was always kind of a spiritual seeker. And so I had never really stopped that, but I finally got to a point where I decided it needed to be formalized. So I got my minister's license in the New Thought movement and became an ordained minister, and about the same time decided I wanted to formalize it with a real education. So I went to Claremont School of Theology and got a master's in religion, and then transferred over to Claremont Graduate University and got a PhD in religion. So now I'm just a professor.
Well, that's a lot. And what do you basically teach then?
I teach things like science and religion, history of Judaism, because I found out when I was 36 that I was actually born Jewish. So I didn't know that.
I was going to ask you if
Yeah.
you knew your parents' background.
I found my birth mother, and we were in communication for a short period of time, during which time I found out that I was born Jewish, because she was and her mother was.
And where?
Germany.
In Germany. Well,
Yes.
how did they survive?
Because my birth grandmother, who was a child prodigy ballerina already at the age of 7, had and was dancing on stage, had adopted a Christian name already, and had grown up all of her life pretty much denying her Jewishness. Even though many of the theater's owners and producers were Jews, she still pretty much denied it for the public purposes, and she didn't look a lot like a Jew. And then when she actually married a Jew, she didn't let the state know that. She didn't register her marriage at all. She got married in a synagogue to a Jewish family that were producers, and they had lots of money in theaters and very well off and well known, but she didn't register it with the state. And this was just about when Hitler was starting. And then when Hitler was running for office, and everyone was, Heil Hitler all over the place, this is when my birth mother was born, and my birth grandmother put on the birth certificate, father unknown, child Catholic. And the same thing happened with my birth mother when I was born. She did the same thing, which in her case was more true, but it wasn't in my birth grandmother's case. She was married, she had a Jewish husband, but she didn't want to say that for the safety. And so my birth grandfather, who was her husband, and my birth mother's father, and the eve, I guess, or at Kristallnacht, my birth mother was visiting her grandparents, and somebody came apparently knocking on the door. She was about 3 years old, maybe, something like that. And she remembers that her grandmother threw her little suitcase into her hand and threw her into a cab and shoved her out the door really fast. And the biggest memory she has is that she didn't get to say goodbye to the little dog. She was a very animal lover person, and especially dogs. Genetics. And that was Kristallnacht. And the entire family was destroyed, and my birth grandfather was picked up and left on a meat hook to die. But my birth grandmother was able to get away because she wasn't registered as a Jew by anybody. But if you were married to a Jew, that was dangerous. So they were always traveling and moving, and she was keeping my birth mother safe. And they didn't look a lot like Jews, and she had already been all those years taking on a Christian name, blah, 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 blah. So that's how they managed to survive it. But my birth grandmother, apparently all of it, she was, because she was a child prodigy, she was kind of like a genius. And so she was a little bit crazy, but my birth mother, I think, probably was a lot crazier. But she had the war to grow up with, too. She was a little kid. And they didn't get along very well. In fact, the last time they saw each other, I heard from my half-sister, they had a physical fight. And then my birth grandmother was back in Germany and died alone from pneumonia, which is unfortunate because my half-sister and grandmother, they got along really well. Oma and she, they got along very well. Of course, it skips generations, right? But yeah, and my major at Berkeley was political science, of course, because I went into law. And my birth mother has a PhD in political science.
Is she still alive?
I have no idea. We haven't been in touch with each other in many, many years. She ended it. She was jealous of my mom, my relationship with my mom. And I wasn't going to let her in until I knew she was a safe person to know.
Yeah. Did she ever come to the States?
She did. After the war, she was very pretty, from what I understand. And she had some American officers who were her suitors. And she was extremely bright and lots of talent in various areas. And she ended up having a special relationship, in particular with an officer who was a pilot who apparently was shot down. So this, a chaplain, a Navy chaplain, I think, had to come and tell her because they were so close and everybody knew you better to go and tell her. So he came to tell her that the guy had died. And that ended up being her husband. The chaplain.
Oh, the chaplain.
She ended up marrying the chaplain, who was a Lutheran minister, which is interesting because she was a Jew. But she pretty much denied her Jewishness all her life. So, I mean, even when I knew her, but I found out through him. So then eventually they moved to Maryland. She had 2 children, and that's, and as far as I know, my half-sister lives in Texas. And other than that, I pretty much don't know anything about them.
Isn't he who told you that?
Yeah, it was her husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I assume that her husband, that TB is what?
Oh, my dad?
Your dad?
He died from service-connected illnesses, yeah.
Oh, that's,
He had emphysema, and he had TB, and he was a heavy smoker. 5 packs a day. 5. It's phenomenal. And I grew up with it. I got a scar on my right lung to show for it. So,
yeah.
That's
Those
how.
days, that's kind of it was. The way
Yeah.
it was in
Yeah.
those days.
Yeah.
So
That's
now.
how the Catholic mothers got a Jewish daughter.
Yeah.
You're right.
That's how a little Jew baby got a Catholic
Oh,
mom.
yeah. So now you're both in school at the same time.
Yeah, I was in law school,
Yeah,
and she was in and out, but mostly she was in. She dropped out for a little while too, and I kept bugging her to go back.
Now, did you have any other brothers and sisters?
No.
Okay. And so were you living together while you were going to school?
Yeah, we lived together a lot of the
Where
time.
were you living?
We were in Alameda. After my dad died, we used the insurance money to buy a condo, and we lived in the condo together.
Okay.
Yeah. We did pretty good.
And then, did you get married anytime soon, or did you have suitors and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I've been in love lots of times, but I married a law school fellow student, but we didn't get married till our 4th year. We dated off and on for those 3 years, from the 1st year through most of the 3rd, and then we kind of stuck together after the end of the 3rd year, and by the halfway through the 4th year, we got married.
And what's his name?
We're divorced. His name was Donald, and we were married about 8 years, and then I was single for 10, and then I met the wonderful guy I'm married to now, named Patrick.
Patrick. Did you have any children?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you, no. Thank
And
you, no.
Patrick
By choice.
what's Patrick's last name?
Dylan. I don't have that name though. My name is Poland.
Yeah. Okay. But okay. And so Patrick, where did you meet him?
We
his
met
background?
country western dancing here in the desert.
Did you really? Oh, okay. And where did he grow up?
He grew up in Oregon.
And what kind of work does he do?
He's a general contractor, and he's the best one here in the whole desert.
I'm sure he
Yeah, probably the whole state.
is. Maybe the whole country.
Maybe.
And did so your country? So how long ago was that when you guys met?
Well, let's see. It would have been this December. Will be 15 years.
So when did you move to the desert?
I moved here in '93. I had a trial assignment out here. And the trial, I was just telling my kids in class today, the trial I thought was going to be maybe 2 weeks, and it was about the time when the Rodney King when the riots happened when it happened, and that was a year before, but the trial and the result from the jury was due right about the time when I was going to be having to cover a trial out here, because I had this unusual practice where I covered things for other lawyers. I didn't have my own practice. And so I was going to be sitting second chair for another lawyer, and he said, go and start it for me, because we're doing the defense, and we can pretty much just sit down and not do too much except voir dire, and I could handle that. And so we did that. I brought Mom, though, and my bird, because I didn't want to leave her there, because the riots were all around where we lived before. When they happened, when the Rodney King thing happened and there were riots in LA, I had to go to her house and pick her up and have her come stay with me.
Okay, so she was living in LA?
Yeah, when I moved to LA after my divorce, she followed me about 2 years later.
I see. Okay.
Because we're the only people in the country we have, so we need to be close.
Yeah, and where in LA were you guys living?
We were on the west side, Santa Monica, Mar Vista, in there.
Okay.
And so I brought Mom out here to the desert with me. And she would sleep in the morning and get things ready and then have lunch ready for me. And I'd come home, get lunch, and then take her back with me, and she'd get to watch the trial. That went for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then I thought it was going to be over, but it was still going. So I had to go home and get new cowboy boots, because that's what I wore at the time, and new clothes, so I could wear new clothes. And the Rodney King thing had passed, so Mom went back home and took Bertie with her, and I finished out the trial, and it went for almost another month. So it was almost a 2-month trial, including the time for the jury to deliberate. And when I went back with all my stuff, I felt like, I don't want to go back to LA. I'd already been looking to move out, and I kept saying, come on, Mom, let's move. She said, no, I'm too old. I'm too old to move. She's moved twice since. Anyway, and I said, oh, come on, we got to move somewhere. And I was suggesting San Diego. Let's go back to, and she was, no. Finally, because she was out here with me, I said, it's nice out there. I could live out there. She said, me too. I said, good, pack your bags. And within 6 weeks, I was working out here. And right after the Northridge earthquake, I just sold whatever we had there and brought her out here with me. I wasn't going to leave her there anymore after that.
You're still working as an attorney out here?
Yeah, I didn't stop working as an attorney officially until 05, 06, something
So
like that.
where was the first place that you all lived out here then?
Well, she had an apartment on Ocotillo.
Yeah.
And I had a house over at Palm Desert Country Club, New York.
When you say Ocotillo, you talk about here in Palm
Here in
Desert?
Palm Desert.
Okay.
Yeah. There was a house in Palm Springs I was looking at for a while, and it would have been really nice because Mom could have had, I almost had it like a guest place for her.
Yeah.
But then I decided I wanted to be in Palm Desert, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah. Okay. So you met Patrick, and when did he first come to the desert?
I think after his divorce, and he was single for about 10 years.
She's hot, darling.
Yeah, I'm going to sit on Grandma's lap.
She's hot.
Yeah.
Let her go.
And so he was here since I think 87 or something like that, but off and on, because he had a job from about 90 to 93 where he was gone most of the time up in the Pacific Northwest installing communication sites.
You didn't have to ask questions, did you?
And he installed about 10 of them all around. But he would come back here during the winter because he couldn't, the weather was too inclement because they installed them up on mountains.
Yeah.
So he says that we met in 93 when I was here, but I don't remember that.
Line dancing where?
No, not line dancing, country western dancing. I didn't do line dancing.
Okay.
I did enough alone. If I'm going to go dancing, I want to dance with a man who knows how to lead.
And
He could line dance,
Do you
though.
remember the club?
Yeah, Cactus Corral.
Oh, Cactus. Yeah, we were there a few times.
It was a great place, and the guy who owned the place I used to go to in LA all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a bunch of good dancers. Thursday night was it was called the Longhorn, and we used to call it the Long and Horny. But it was really some good dancers. It was 45 minutes from where I lived, but it was worth it to go there and dance because they were good dancers. And not too much line dancing, because line dancing wasn't big just
I
yet.
think she's thirsty. I
They,
think she's thirsty.
Are you thirsty?
Thirsty girl.
So does Patrick have any children?
Nope.
Okay.
Yay.
Okay.
It's our baby.
That's your baby, yeah. Okay, so now, so did she do anything with her education? Did she?
Not work-wise, no.
Not work-wise,
But she befriended a lot of the professors and students, and so they stayed in touch for a really long time. She was in the acting, she did French acting stuff. She was very good up on stage.
Really?
Yeah.
You did some school plays, you
Pardon
mean?
me?
You acted at school when you were at Hayward. Remember when you were in those plays?
Anyway,
In the plays at
Oh.
Hayward.
French.
French plays, oh, okay.
Yeah, I never thought. My first year in college, I didn't ever ask a question. I sat there and didn't open my mouth. I was so afraid to make a mistake. But I took the adult evening classes. But then I got used to it. And also the young people would come to me and ask advice.
Mm-hmm.
Funny.
Yeah, well, sure.
And then one time she
So-
took a class in literature, and there was, what was the Shakespearean one that the professor was so impressed with your interpretation?
Was, well, I took Shakespeare, and I studied. And he was a young professor, maybe early 30s. And he would ask a question, and I could answer. He asked another question, and finally he asked a question, and I was afraid I didn't answer, but I knew the answer. And he would say, anybody? And he got so frustrated, poor guy. They didn't study.
Yeah.
And I saw him in the hall, and I said, did you get mad at me? He said, no, I didn't get mad at you because you were the only one who studied. And when the exams came, there was one guy, had my book, and you could take notes, and he asked my book too.
But there was also an interpretation that you had of something. Remember when you interpreted something and they said, oh, I never thought of it that way. Wasn't that a Shakespearean play?
Oh, that was another professor.
Okay.
And that was also Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because of her perspective
The-
and her
oh,
age.
the son whose mother married the brother of her husband.
Was that Lear?
Yeah. No, it's, well, anyhow,
No.
he
Don't know
said,
Shakespeare well enough.
you have to write a paper about this, but don't come and look at all the other people who have written, because I know all of it. He said, don't copy, don't cheat. And I was thinking, as a mother, I thought, well, he was mad at his mother because, and so I figured, well, she married that guy to protect her son. And I made a whole story about the son being in danger because of that. And he read my paper in the class.
Of course, I corrected some of the grammar, but.
No, I had some good times,
Yeah.
especially the French classes. The thing is that I'm glad I took those French classes because I met authors that I've never, knew about, because I was raised in a very Catholic school. Very, very Catholic. They never let us read those people. André Gide never.
Hugo
And
Victor Hugo.
so
things like
finally,
that.
I knew they were writers, French. No, they never let us read them.
Yeah.
I remember the only one they let Henri Bordeaux, they let because he was Catholic. Then there was not, well, anyhow. I loved my French class.
Yeah.
Well, I never thought I was going to like it. And I quit one time. Remember, I had enough, and I was bored, sick. I said, so I went back.
It's quite an accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do these days to occupy yourself?
Oh, I grade myself.
Well, no, what are you doing? She goes to her exercise class twice a week.
I was saying, what do you do these days to occupy yourself, to keep yourself busy?
Very little. Very, very little. When I think about my life, first of all, I don't see. I don't hear. So I cannot read anymore. I've got a little help now.
She has an Aladdin machine that
But
she can helps her to read.
my eyes get tired.
Yeah,
And then I had an operation.
she did really well with
operation.
that.
And then I broke my foot.
Dancing on stage
3
at
places.
96.
And I was in a cast more than necessary.
6 weeks.
Well, how did you break it? How did you break your ankle?
Stupid thing. You know, I was a leader in my class for 13 years. And
On
at
the exercise
95,
calisthenics,
Oh, Alice.
senior calisthenics.
Calisthenics.
Okay.
She was the teacher.
At
for 30 years.
95, I told them I retire.
Until
So
she was 95, she
I
did
retired,
this
and there was
teaching.
2 other places. See, one day after my hip operation, I was doing great. Walk, normal.
Yeah.
One day we arrived, both of them were sick. So I said, well, okay, here I am.
96, hip operation.
So they have a platform where you're there, and it has 4 separation.
Risers
And they only had made 2.
instead of 4 going across.
Yeah, so we have an exercise that says 1, 2, 3, kick, 1, 2, 3, back. 1, 2, 3, kick, 1, 2, 3, back. I fell backwards.
And broke
On
the
the
heel.
platform,
Just
was
her
not
heel.
high. I fell back.
Ambulance and everything.
I broke my foot. And I've never recuperated.
Well, kind of, mostly.
Well, I recuperated, but I've never been the same again. So
Haven't done
I'm-
high kicks.
No high kicks since.
I'm
Low
very
kicks.
limited. I have to walk her. When I go out with her, I take her arm. I can walk.
Well, a
hold
lot of that too is because you can't see.
it. I can see.
Yeah, that's why my
And there,
mother.
a lot of the
same way.
insecurity is that. It's not,
Yes.
her foot is doing really well, and if she could see, she'd be zooming along.
Yeah, I can.
But it's more because you can't see. Anybody would be insecure then. That's only natural.
And you see, when that accident happened, I already had started losing my eyesight.
Yeah.
It's macular degeneration.
Yeah, my mother has that.
Yeah.
And there's no, they have help now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, they do
Injections
if you
and stuff
catch
that,
it
if you catch it early, but you gotta know what to look
Yeah, I
for.
know, yeah.
And we didn't, and it was already too late when we went with her. We went all the way to UCLA several times. Just
Yeah.
didn't,
And
it
now
was too late.
I tell everybody at the Jocelyn Center, I tell everybody, if you start to have hazy, everything like a haze in front of you, go to the retina doctor right away.
Yeah, not a regular doctor.
Yeah.
If we had known,
Yeah,
it would not have a cure,
yeah,
but it
Would
would
stop.
have arrested.
yeah.
Yeah.
She was the perfect candidate for what they had out at that time.
Did your mother have shots in her eye?
No, same thing. I mean, she's had it for years, and my aunt also. I mean, she's had it for like 40 years.
Can
or
she
something.
still read?
No,
Yeah.
no. But she listens to books on tape. That
Yeah,
kind of
well, at least
thing.
she has her hearing. She has trouble with that too.
Yeah,
See?
well, she has hearing aid, but yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I don't have it. I
yeah.
can hear.
Well, you can.
Well, you.
Oh, I'm almost.
Without her hearing aid, she pretty much can't
I'm
hear.
Oh, I
almost
see.
there.
Yeah.
I'm almost deaf.
Yeah.
So I'm very handicapped. It doesn't look like it, but I am.
Well, as long as you
The
feel
only
good.
thing
Yeah.
that I'm thankful for, my brains. I'm thankful.
It's a little too smart for me.
So do you have philosophical discussions between you guys?
Oh, not usually, because she doesn't understand what I say. And she'll be the first to tell you. I don't understand a thing you said. I gave her some things I write. I don't understand that. I try to simplify it and make it really basic. I don't get it. Okay, never mind.
So that's my life. My life is not the same anymore. It used to
It's
be.
much quieter now.
I sleep a lot.
Sleep is good.
Yeah, that's good. I'd like that right about now.
I think a lot too. You know, I may be sitting down, but my brain is working all the time. Especially the past is coming back. Little things, that's why I can talk to you, because those things have come back slowly. Yeah. I tell Arlette very many times, oh, I thought about this and that, and I got mad or I am happy.
Tell me, it sounds like some of your best times were when you lived in San Francisco, in that area.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me some of the happy times, the things that
Oh,
you
yeah.
remember there.
Oh yeah, they were happy time. This is my happiness.
Yeah.
She's been a good daughter.
But, well, maybe you can both share a little bit about
We
some-
fight a lot, you know.
No.
When you lived in San Francisco, what did you like to do? Did you like to go shopping? Did you like to go to the park?
No,
What did you
I-
like to do most?
No, because basically I've been a dull housewife.
Not very dull, but she's
A
been
dull housewife.
a great
Only
mom and a
living-
really good wife.
Only living for my house, for my husband, for her. All that counted was them. And I never thought about myself. Never.
Well, where did you live? Where was your home?
We were in Alameda,
Okay.
so we were in the East Bay. We weren't in the city.
Okay.
And
What street? What? You remember your address?
Pearl Street, 1719 Pearl Street.
19 Pearl Street.
I started to blossom when she put me in college.
Yeah, after my dad died.
Yeah.
Blossom is the word.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
Because-
Then she started becoming her own self.
But even when I was a dull housewife, I read a lot.
Yeah, she would check books, stacks of books out of the library every week.
I would sit down at night when they were in bed, and I could read until the middle of the night.
Yeah,
What did you like to read?
Oh,
lots of different variety.
novel, but I like biography
Yeah,
a lot. History.
a few mysteries, sometimes a mystery or a love story, but mostly,
Actually, I like everything
yeah,
except murder,
yeah,
war.
yeah.
No war.
Yeah, I know you said you like history real well. And, what are some of your what years in what centuries?
parts
let's put
of
it this-
history?
What parts of history, like ancient history or
Well-
American history or what?
Look, you here in America, your history is very limited. In Europe, you can go back way down. You know, you have Charlemagne, that's what, 600? And then you have all the other kings. Then you have the Spanish, you have Spanish who occupied, the Belgium began Spanish because Isabel got it as a
Wedding present, dowry.
it's dowry. And it was not called Belgium. We belonged to the part that called Gaul, Gaul.
Divide.
That was part of the
became-
Gaul, the
So-
old history from, yeah, I know all the history of
But you also like Egyptian history, and you knew a lot about the Mayan history and the Aztecs.
the what?
The Mayan history and the Aztecs and the Egyptians, you studied all that.
But I took it. I took that, but it's not as interesting as Europe.
And then you liked art history,
It's
remember?
so varied. It's so colorful.
Want to sit on Grandma's lap?
You know when Belgium became Belgium, 1830,
Yeah.
and then they.
And you say America's a young country.
Yeah.
We started in 1776.
Yeah. And they made Belgium because after the Napoleon battle, the big England and Holland and Germany, they created Belgium.
Russia.
And the first king of Belgium was German. Okay,
Yeah.
that's your history.
I think, yeah. Now Prussia, that's kind of like Germany. At the time, didn't they
It's
call
the
them
eastern part
Prussians?
of Germany.
Prussia is part of Germany.
Yeah, more eastern.
And that little country has so much history. That history is still playing now. Because to the fact that Holland lost the northern part of that's Belgium now, to it became Belgium. Northern part was Flemish speaking, southern part French speaking, because Louis XVI lost something. Well, and to this day, they fight between the Flemish and the French. We have two ministers. They have a French ministry with all the other, and then they had the French. However, the Flemish have a big advantage because they have Antwerp, the sea coast, and the northern part, and the French speaking only have a tiny no industry. They have coal mines, but they had a weapon industry one time. Belgium were very famous
Yes.
for their weapons.
Blades. When's the last time you worked in Belgium? Either of you or both?
Years ago, it was 80,
Long time ago.
81,
Oh, was it?
82,
Oh, but at least it
84,
was-
somewhere
Yeah.
before 85.
Yeah. Did you go back to see any
We went
Oh,
together, yeah, we went
We
to see
went back
relatives.
so much when we were
used to go
living
there.
in Germany.
Well, I know that, but I mean,
No,
the
but
last
from
time
here
you
we went quite often, yeah.
You did?
Maybe every 5 or 10
Did
years
you?
at the least.
And you saw her relatives?
Yeah, and they've been here a few times. Her sister when she was alive, and her sister's husband, my uncle, would come. They came once or twice, and then they came with some friends one time, and then her sister came with a friend, and then her sister came alone a couple times. Her sister died a little while ago, and then her brother never came here, but her brother's surviving spouse, my aunt, has come, and a couple of my cousins have come to visit a few times. But no one has come in probably about 3 or 4 years, 4 years anyway, I think.
But the Belgians have a tendency to criticize everything American. I think they're jealous. Hey,
You set them straight though when they come
I
Yeah.
went back, when I went back, all I did was fight.
You know, she would come back saying, "Oh, they're so small-minded.
They
They don't
think-
belong there anymore."
Yeah, that the Americans are superior, they have an attitude, but they don't have the background we have. They don't have the education we have. Which is true.
Yeah,
Well, that is
well,
true.
yeah,
That's
but
true, that's true.
so.
I think we get along all right. though.
Oh, we're doing okay, I think. I hope.
Patrick, so what does he do for fun or when he's not working? Does he like to play golf or tennis
Oh,
or
no,
sports?
none of that
anything
stuff,
like
fortunately. No, he sails on occasion, used to sail a lot. We have a sailboat out in the garage that sits there most of the time. Maybe once or twice a year he gets a chance to get it out.
Yeah.
And he likes to go back-roading, off-roading with the guys. And let's see, what else does he do for fun? Mostly that. Oh, and they go shooting sometimes. He has a small little gun collection of, a couple of guns or something, and they all go out to way out in the desert somewhere safe, and then they clean up after themselves, because I make sure he does.
Sure. And you, when you're not teaching and stuff, what do you do for fun?
Drive Mom around, sleep, hang out with Vashti, grade papers.
Do you get a chance to read much?
Yeah. Actually, I just got a Kindle, so I've been through 5 books already in about 3 or 4 weeks.
That's the thing
Been
that's
great.
on the
The
computer?
Amazon, yeah. It's
Oh.
actually a little piece of, I have it right over here somewhere. But
Do you
it's,
like it?
Oh, I love it. I love my Kindle. It's
Great.
really great. Yeah, it's fun because I'm finally getting a chance to read books. Because it's hard sometimes for me to hold a book open, and then it's also, you don't know all the time where you left off, but the Kindle goes right to the
Oh, yeah.
page.
Oh, that's nice.
And it's real easy to hold, and I got a kind of a holder thing for it in pink, of course. And it's really easy to handle. I love it.
What do you like to read?
I like classics, and I like accurate historical novels, and of course trial stuff. Because I know all the language, and I can skip through a lot of stuff,
Do you
and I know
watch
the
any of
strategies.
the TV shows like Law and Order and things like that?
Yeah, I used to watch Law and Order a lot. The one that I liked a lot was Boston Legal. Loved that show. Was really disappointed when they ended that show. Could have gone on for another 10 years, is my opinion. They did great stuff. Wonderful acting. We both loved Boston Legal. That was a good show. And so I'll watch law shows quite a bit because I already have an idea of what they're doing.
Did you do criminal law or civil?
I
or-
did. When I first practiced, I was in the DA's office for about a year and a half. So I understand that world a little bit. And then when I was out in private practice, I practiced in almost every area of law except not family law or bankruptcy at all. But I did even some immigration and business litigation. But I also did some criminal defense, of course, because I had done that. And the thing that I hated about that, most of all, was going into lockup to meet with clients. I hated that. The noise, the sound, the smell, the feel of it, the energy, everything was horrible.
So what, may I ask you, what is your job at the museum?
Well, doing this mainly, coming out, talking to people like you and getting their stories. You'll be about number 580 now.
Wow.
We've done
Good
the
for
last
you.
10 years. So,
Wow.
so that's, I do other stuff too, but this is the main thing that I do.
That's wonderful.
So we're really,
But it's mostly about airplanes.
no,
No.
no, no. Well, no, it's not. No, it's about anybody that was in the service, in the military, or especially World War II. If you're even
Yeah,
civilians
because there are
like
very
you.
few left.
Yeah, that's
Fewer
we're
and
getting less and
fewer all
less
the
all the
time.
time. Yeah, but
You know, I was surprised that he has so many original newspapers. You know, they're valuable.
yeah,
The
we have a lot of
Victory
them
paper,
there. Mm-hmm.
it's very valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And old magazines and things like that. Yeah.
And then they got this, the military in Antwerp, they got a citation from the burgomaster, from the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
They all got,
Burgomaster, yeah.
because they went through so much.
By the time
Well,
I was 3, I knew how to salute.
Doesn't mean you want to have
guess
a drink of water or something.
Well, he
I think, well, I don't know. You
What
guys
about-
are you,
pretty.
I think we might be just about ready to wrap it
Yeah.
up. Any
Mom's
final
going to be
thoughts?
100 in November.
Be 100 in November. I heard that. I had heard about that.
You come to visit me when I'm 100.
If you'll have me, I will.
We'll send you an
We'll come
invite.
to see you.
Good.
Okay, well, I would love to see
I
you.
won't take an airplane.
Are you gonna, will you be able to kick a little bit higher than you can now?
Yeah. Do some high kicking, Mom.
No more.
The dancing? Did you like to dance
Oh,
with
yeah.
your husband?
Oh,
You used
yeah.
to go
My
dancing a lot?
husband
Like
loved
dancing.
to dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My first dancing was on his toes.
I suppose, yeah, well, about her. Now, how tall were you?
She was 5'2" and he was 6'2".
Just a foot between you.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You can see her
I-
at the end, that picture of a
I
wedding.
do want to see those, and now, I know that friable stuff, but if you have any pictures
We
of
do
your...
in her place. There's
It's
a lot.
in the
Good.
back there.
Well, because, see,
You
we're
can
going
go
to
there, put 'em on
transcribe
there.
this into print form,
Oh, good.
and we'd like to have some because that'll be in the museum.
Oh,
Two people
right.
can read her story.
Okay.
And then we got some pictures of her and her
What
husband
do you
and
want
stuff like
pictures
that.
Good.
of?
You can go and film the pictures in her room. 'Cause
Can
there's
you?
a great, if you want to put them on here. Because they're
that
in
would-
huge frames and stuff.
Oh, I
So
see.
it's not the kind
Can-
of thing that we
can
can.
you-
Well, I can try that. I might be able to, and then I may be able to
If
scan
you
them.
film it.
Yeah, I'll
that's-
try that. Okay, I'll try.
Can he take pictures of
Yeah,
us?
that's
Of
what,
those books?
yeah, well, of the pictures, he wants some pictures in your place.
Now, of your books, if you've got some things there that you.
I'll look through it
that
maybe
if there-
while she shows you the pictures in
and
her
then you
place.
can just make some copies and I'll get them from you sometime.
You know,
I don't know
when,
if we can
when
make
we got
copies.
Oh,
married,
if you can, okay.
when we got married, we first had to get married to the Germans. We had to follow their line.
Mhm.
And then America. Well, my husband, Colonel, he liked to play, not jokes, but he liked fun. So when we come out of the chapel, there was a caisson waiting for us.
A real caisson.
Really?
A caisson
Oh, wow.
on the
Yeah.
cobblestones.
Yes.
Boing, 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 boing.
And from the chapel, he drove us to the hotel.
What was left
I
of them.
Yeah.
I have pictures of me on the case.
Yeah.
Is that right?
And she's
Oh.
holding her hat.
Oh,
Going,
yeah,
hold
well,
on.
we need pictures of that. That's the kind of stuff we need to.
Yeah.
But, I meant to ask you, your husband, so what was his rank when he
Major.
retired? Major.
Yeah, when they got me, he was already a captain.
Okay.
We have all his medals in
Yeah,
a case.
yeah, in her place.
Okay, well,
You
I
want
want to thank you so much
Oh, you're
for
welcome.
sharing with us. You too, Arlette. This
Okay,
is great.
thank you for coming out.
Thank you,
and-
thank you, buddy. We'll go in and check that stuff out.
My little one.
Yeah.
Maybe-
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
There's another picture you can take from Daddy.
Oh, we gotta have that picture. We can maybe email that to him.
I'll email it to you.
Yeah.
Oh.
And this here too. Oh, look, that's Uncle Elmer and Gloria Sue. Oh. And Aunt Pauline. That's my dad over here. Now, in this, you can notice says de Reux and Bruxelles down there. My mom's brother became a photographer,
Oh.
and he did these as their
Okay.
wedding present.
Oh, neat. That's
And
great.
he retouched it a little bit, but he
Uh-huh.
did these photos. He had a beautiful salon.
Yeah. And they got married in Germany?
No, yeah, they got married in Germany, and then they had these photos done.
Done in Belgium.
Yeah. See the lieutenant's bars from when they got married.
Mhm. That's a nice one.
Don't back up too fast.
We came on. And my diploma.
The one on the right, yeah, mom's diploma.
Oh, yeah, we gotta get
The
that.
one on the right's from my passport.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The one in the middle was from when I was doing acting in LA, and the one on the left, I was about 8 or 9 years old in Belgium, done by one of those street artists who do portraits of you on the
Uh-huh.
streets.
So would you say that, where was this taken?
This was in Germany
Uh-huh.
when I was 2. And there's mom's graduation.
There's her graduation.
Yeah.
In 19, what?
Let's see, she was 70, so that would have been 1980.
Mm-hmm.